Hi, in today's video, we're going to be talking about how to create your very own documentary. Whether you're just starting out or you actually have a story that you want to tell, I'll be taking you through this entire step from start to finish. Now let's begin. The first thing you need to do is decide on the topic and style of documentary you're going to create. Now you need to figure out the topic because you need to find something that's compelling and that will grab a lot of attention. The next thing you want to do is figure out the style in which the documentary is going to be. There's a lot of different styles of documentaries, but let's look at the three popular ones. There's expository documentary. Now, this documentary is where you have a narrator guiding you throughout the whole entire process. So think of nature documentaries. This is the best example of what this is. The next type of documentary is observational documentary, right? In this style, you're basically a fly on the wall and you're just observing what's happening and you don't have any influence whatsoever, right? You're just making sure you're capturing all the moments, all the real moments. That's all you're doing. Now, the next type of documentary is participatory documentary. Now, this is my favorite. In this type of documentary is where you're playing an active role in this. You are actually interviewing people, you are asking questions, and you're basically guiding the story as it all unravels. The second thing you need to know is know your audience. Before you start, you need to ask yourself, who's going to be watching this documentary? Because this will kind of dictate how you're going to structure the documentary. So take, for example, if you were to create a documentary about global warming and your target audience are the youth, you want to make sure that you're focusing more on the future implication that's going to happen in this documentary, right? But then if your target audience was professionals, skilled professionals, in this particular case, what you need to focus more on is data-driven facts embedded in your documentary. So that's how knowing who the target audience is going to be changes the structure or the way in which you tell the story. The next thing you need to think about is your pre-production. Now, this is where the magic begins, right? So here's what you need to focus on. You need to first research your topic. You need to watch other documentaries in that particular topic and see what they're doing, what works and what doesn't work, what you like and what you don't like. Use them as inspiration for your documentaries, right? You need to also do some detailed research. Go get the facts, the details, gather all of that to help you structure a really good documentary. The next thing you want to do is identify the key people of influence in that particular topic. Now, once you figure out who the key people of influence are, you're going to have to do a preliminary interview and interview them, because this is where you're going to shape the direction of where the story is going to head. You basically created a narrative, right? Now, once all of that is figured out, you need to now start creating a story. Now, you're asking yourself, how do you create a compelling story? Well, there are different ways in which you can tell a compelling story. So let's look at one of the best tried and true way that works every single time. It's the 3-arc storytelling format, right? The first arc of this is basically making the audience care. Just think of it this way. You're just trying to answer the question, why should I care about this character? Why should I fall in love with this character? Why should I care about this thing you're showing me right now? That's the question you're hoping to answer. The next thing you want to do, the next thing in the arc is creating a seemingly impossible challenge. A challenge that it seems that they cannot overcome, the character can't overcome, right? That's what's the middle, and that's where the peak is, right? And once you get there, you start descending down. And what you're descending down towards is your resolution. And the resolution aspect is you want to show that they overcame the challenge or they didn't overcome the challenge. That's basically a story arc, and that's how you tell a compelling story. So once you have this structure, you don't necessarily need a script per se. It depends on what style of documentary you're creating, but you still need some kind of flow to this. So what you could do is do interviews, create interview questions to guide the story. The next thing you need to do is assemble your team and begin to plan to shoot. Now, you need to figure out who's going to be your team, who's going to be your camera guy, who's going to be your sound guy, who's going to be your editor. You want to make sure you figured out all of this in advance. Once you figure that out, you want to figure out the equipment you're going to be using. Remember, storytelling isn't just about the script or the characters. It's also about the visual story you're telling. And you want to make sure whatever you're creating visually enhances the story and doesn't deter from it. Now, production, time to shoot. The fun part of this, right? You need to scout your locations way in advance. You need to go in and see if the location fits for the narrative in which you're trying to create, or if it doesn't. So scout your location definitely ahead of time, and make sure you scout using your camera. Don't just go in there, just eyeball it. Put a camera in there, see how it looks in camera, then take it home, ponder upon it, and then see if it works, right? So now that you're ready to shoot, you want to make sure that you don't miss anything important. So when you plan out your interviews and when you plan your B-rolls, remember there's no such thing as enough B-rolls. You'll never have enough B-rolls. So record as much B-rolls as you can, because B-rolls enhance the feel of what you're creating. It makes it visually more appealing when there are breaks in it, rather than having somebody talking for an extended period of time without any breaks or any change. Next is post-production, where you're putting it all together. You want to make sure that you've properly organized your footage. Now, here's what I recommend. After every day of shooting, go there, take 5-10 minutes to go in, label every single file, and put them in proper folders. Because the last thing you want is wait until the day where you're editing and then you can't find this audio. You don't know where this audio is. Is this the same file? Is this that wrong file? Did I mix them? Did I delete it? You really don't want that mess. So it's 5 to 10 minutes. Just sit down every shoot, properly label every single file. Now you just have to work on creating a rough cut. People have different editing styles. So here's how I edit. Typically, if we're creating a documentary, I would take all my interviews and edit them separately in a separate timeline. I'll take all my B-rolls, edit my B-rolls separately on a different timeline. I'll take my voiceovers, edit them separately for what I want to create. Take my music, I organize my music separately on a different timeline. And then after that, then I start to bring everything together and I create a first rough cut, a really long rough cut. And it's from this rough cut that I begin to chip away, just like a wood carver is carving out all the excess fats till you get the figurine that you particularly want. So that's how I edit, and that's my style. You need to figure out your budgeting, see how much all of this will need to cost. Remember, you don't need a big budget. You can start something very small. After that, you need to figure out your distribution and marketing for this particular documentary, what you're going to do afterwards with it. Put it on YouTube or submit to film festivals. You want to make sure you're planning for all of this in advance. And if you need to create some specific assets like social media assets, trailers, and all of that, you need to figure all of that out in advance. So guys, making a documentary might seem overwhelming, but if you follow the steps, it's actually not as complicated. So don't forget to download the documentary production checklist that I have here. Just click on the link and you'll be able to have access to it. I hope you found this video really helpful. If so, please just give a thumbs up, or if you have any questions, just put the questions down below. Cheers.